In 2016, 17-year-old Danta Wright committed a cold, callous murder of 18-year-old Jordan Klee. The shocking crime occurred in Michigan and garnered statewide attention. But Danta's reaction in court ignited outrage from all corners of the globe.
Your why will never be better than his life. Your want will never trump my son's death. You get to live, get to wake up every day. Your life continues. I sincerely hope that whatever it was you wanted so badly that you felt the need to murder my son was worth the next at least 52 years of your continued existence. You won't get the luxury of raising your child because you took mine.
As seen in the courtroom footage, as Karen Klee, the mother of the victim, has her victim impact statement read out loud on her behalf, Danta can be seen smiling and smirking, as if her words mean nothing to him. But what causes a 17-year-old to commit such a heinous crime and show such lack of remorse? Well, let's examine the crime in more detail. Jordan Klee was born on July 26, 1998, to mother Karen Klee and father Sean Bristol. Jordan grew up in Washtenaw County, Michigan, but his life didn't get off to the best start. When he was just 5 months old, his father passed away, leaving his mom to raise him alone. Despite the loss of his father, his childhood didn't suffer. Jordan was described as an outgoing child with a happy-go-lucky nature who excelled in sports. By the time he reached high school, he was one of the best football players in the area, even winning the Scholar Athlete Award for academic excellence and the NAACP Award. Jordan planned to go to college at Michigan University, hoping to become an engineer. He also planned to join the university football team. Unfortunately, though, Jordan wouldn't get the chance to go to university. In fact, he wouldn't even get the chance to graduate high school, because on October 4th, 2016, his life would come to an abrupt end. Around 2:15 on October 4th, a maintenance worker at the Pine Lake Village apartment complex caught the sound of what he believed to be a single gunshot. Initially, he dismissed it without much thought, uncertain whether it was indeed the sound of a gun. However, as he went about his daily duties, exploring the complex, he unexpectedly came across the lifeless body of a young boy positioned outside one of the apartment blocks. The boy had suffered a single gunshot wound to the head. The maintenance worker immediately called 911 and explained what had happened. He made it clear that the boy was shot in the head and wasn't showing any signs of life. Emergency services arrived promptly, and the police swiftly classified the incident as a homicide. Subsequently, they interviewed potential witnesses and the staff members at the complex. The maintenance worker who alerted the authorities asserted he had only heard the gunshot and did not witness the killing. The same statement was echoed by the other complex staff. Investigators then canvassed the area and learned that in late April, a 20-year-old man was shot on the same block. In the hours that followed, the police positively identified the deceased man as 18-year-old Jordan Klee. As the news spread, students at Pioneer High School were devastated. Even more devastated was his mother, Karen, as Jordan was her only child. The puzzling aspect for investigators was understanding why Jordan was present at the Pine Lake complex in the first place. He didn't live there, and he should have been attending school at the time of the incident. Initially, law enforcement considered the possibility of a gang-related crime. However, upon conversing with Jordan's mother, it became evident that Jordan was not engaged in any criminal activities. On October 10th, nearly a week after the discovery of Jordan's body, the police made their first arrest in the case. Delreno Gracie and Jamarius Ellison, both 17 years old, were apprehended and held in police custody. They were charged with felony murder, armed robbery, and conspiracy to commit armed robbery. Following an extensive interrogation of Gracie and Ellison, another 17-year-old, Danta Wright was arrested and faced the same charges as the other suspects. Additionally, though, Danta was also hit with an additional felony firearm charge. It was determined by police that Danta was the boy responsible for pulling the trigger and was considered the group's ringleader. The police deduced that the motive for the murder was likely a botched armed robbery. Following his arrest, Danta underwent a competency evaluation to determine his ability to stand trial. This was to ensure that he had adequate understanding of what had happened and what he was being accused of. The psychological evaluation showed that he had difficulties in an academic setting without support, but ultimately determined him fit to stand trial. During his first court appearance in June 2017, Danta Wright's case was presented to the judge. It was revealed that the motive behind the robbery was to acquire controlled substances and/or clothing belonging to Jordan Klee. Subsequently, Danta was presented with a plea agreement that would see him serve between 25 and 52 years in prison, a sentence that would likely see him not die behind bars.
Armed robbery, count 3, conspiracy to commit armed robbery, count 6, the felony firearm, and an added count 7 of murder in the second degree. There is a sentence agreement in this case. The sentence agreement is that on counts 2, 3, and 7, the defendant will serve 23 to 50 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections.
As part of the plea agreement, he was required to plead guilty on second-degree murder, armed robbery, conspiracy to commit armed robbery, and possession of a firearm. Danta was willing to accept the conditions outlined in the plea agreement and pleaded guilty to all charges brought against him.
You would agree to serve 23 to 50 years in Michigan Department of Corrections plus 2 on the felony firearm. How do you want to plead to counts 2, 3, 6, and 7?
I'm pleading guilty.
Following his guilty plea, the prosecutor then asked Danta a series of questions regarding the day of the murder, and as seen in the footage, he appears to be somewhat unbothered by the severity of the situation.
On the morning of October 4th, 2016, did you agree and conspire with 2 other individuals, Delvino Gracie and Jamarius Ellison, to commit an armed robbery?
Yeah.
And who are you going to rob?
Jordan Klee.
Jordan Klee. And that afternoon, did you in fact rob Jordan Klee?
Yeah.
And did you use a gun to place him in fear in order to take his property?
Yeah.
And as a result of that armed robbery, what did you do with that gun and Mr. Jordan Klee?
Shot him.
And where did you shoot him?
On the top. By his head.
And did you kill him with that shot?
Yes.
The nonchalant manner in which he answers the questions demonstrates what can only be perceived as a lack of remorse. And that lack of remorse would become even more evident during his sentencing 1 month later in July 2017. Prior to the sentencing, Judge David Schwartz of Washtenaw County Court granted the victim's mother, Karen Klee, the opportunity to present her victim impact statement. However, due to her evident emotional distress, other family members stepped in to read the statement on her behalf.
I simply wish that you go to prison for the maximum time your plea agreement allows, that you become something more than what you were taught to be in your miserable life, and that your child gets brought up far away from the life you led, because it's obvious to me and everyone here that you need help. Your actions have led you to a prison cell, but have also created an empty cell that I live in every day. While you can still hope to be released one day, I'll never escape my hell.
While listening to the anguish Karen had endured since the loss of her son, Danta Wright could be observed exhibiting smiles and smirks, which raised concerns for Judge Schwartz. After Karen's impact statement was read, Danta was asked to give his closing statements. However, rather than utilizing that opportunity to extend an apology to Jordan's mother and express empathy, he further demonstrated his lack of remorse by saying this.
I just want to tell y'all, I'll be home soon. R.I.P. Keon, I love my family. Yes.
Danta's uncaring attitude enraged Judge Schwartz, so much that he even threatened to reject his plea deal and force him to go to trial, where he almost certainly would have received a much harsher prison sentence.
But watching you sit there smile and laugh and shake your head like this was no big deal, I'm very tempted to just say, I'm not going to accept this sentence agreement. We'll go to trial, and if you're convicted of felony murder, you'll go to prison for the rest of your life. That means you'll die there. That's what I'm tempted to do.
After the judge's outburst, Danta's lawyers issued an apology on his behalf, asserting that his seemingly callous behavior stemmed from a state of panic and was his way of coping mentally with the distress. But that earned little sympathy with Judge Swartz, who allowed the prosecutor to consult with the Klee family to decide whether or not they would want the case to go to trial. Luckily for Danta, Karen Klee was so distraught that she wanted the trial to be over and done with, and didn't want to go through any more heartbreak. In the end, Danta Wright was sentenced to 23 to 50 years for the murder and robbery of Jordan Klee. He also got an additional 2 years for carrying the firearm. His two accomplices both received lesser sentences. Jermarius Ellison and Delrano Gracie were each sentenced to 15 to 40 years. After the sentences were handed out, Danta Wright's mother gave an interview to the press in which she claimed that her son wasn't aware of what was happening in court because he suffers from unspecified mental conditions.
I don't feel like he understands exactly what's going on because of his mental conditions and things like that, and no one has even brought that up or said anything about it. So
During the interview, she also expressed sympathy for Karen Klee. However, in a somewhat puzzling manner, she depicted herself as a victim, citing the loss of her son, despite the fact that he is alive and his imprisonment was a consequence of his own choices.
what upset me was I'm sorry for her loss, just as well as mine. My son was supposed to graduate this year too, and I mean, it's just bad all the way around. So that's just how I feel.
Since Jordan's passing, Karen has become an advocate against gun violence in hopes that more can be done to stop other mothers from having to deal with the nightmare of losing a child. Do you think that Danta's nonchalant demeanor in court resulted from him trying to mask his true emotions? Or do you believe that he genuinely has no remorse for taking Jordan's life? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're here, check out our video on serial killer Michael Madison. Thanks for watching.